When was the last time you truly sat alone? Not as an escape, but as a return? To many, the idea of being alone feels threatening, like a silence we must fill or a space we must flee. But what if I told you that being alone is one of the most powerful experiences a person can have, not a void to escape, but a wellspring of profound freedom? Aloneness is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is a craving for connection we believe lies outside of ourselves. Aloneness, on the other hand, is the realization that we are not separate from life. It's standing at the edge of the ocean and feeling not just the waves on your feet, but the tides in your chest. When you are alone, truly alone, something remarkable happens. The constant noise of external demands, the roles, the labels, the endless striving begins to fade, and in its place is silence. Not the cold, empty kind, but the kind that holds the hum of the universe. A silence that allows you to hear your own thoughts without judgment and feel your own presence without resistance. The world has conditioned us to believe that solitude is to be avoided, that to be alone is to be incomplete. But in truth, aloneness is the space where we rediscover who we are beyond the stories we've been told. It's in this space that fear dissolves and creativity emerges. The greatest works of art, the most profound ideas, the deepest self-reflections, they are often born not in crowds, but in quiet. There's a paradox in solitude. When you truly embrace being alone, you no longer feel alone. You begin to see that the boundaries between self and other are illusions. In the stillness of solitude, you connect with life in its raw, unfiltered form. You become attuned to the rhythm of the wind, the song of the trees, and the pulse of your own being. Being alone is powerful because it frees you. It frees you from the need to be someone for anyone else. It frees you from the expectations of the world, and most importantly, it frees you from the fear of yourself. In solitude, you don't lose connection, you find it. So the next time you feel uneasy about being alone, don't reach for distraction. Sit with it. Feel it. Embrace it. In that space, you may discover that being alone is not about what's missing. It's about what's always been there, waiting for you to notice. But true power doesn't come from what you have or who surrounds you. True power comes from knowing that you are enough, standing alone in the infinite now. In our day-to-day lives, we are deeply immersed in the belief that we are separate individuals, isolated in our thoughts, desires, and experiences. We draw thick lines around our identities. I am this, not that. I belong here, not there. I am me, and you are you. These lines seem so clear, so permanent. They tell us who we are, or so we think. But let us pause and look closer. Consider a wave on the surface of the ocean. We give it a name, wave, and in doing so, we imagine it to be something distinct from the vast water it rises from. But is the wave ever truly separate from the ocean? Its rise, its form, its very existence depend entirely on the ocean beneath it. When the wave falls, does it disappear? No, it simply returns to the whole. In the same way, we are like waves on the great ocean of existence. Each of us appears distinct with our own thoughts, bodies, and experiences. But beneath this surface lies a deeper truth. We are not separate from the world around us. The air you breathe was exhaled by the trees. The food you eat grew from the earth. Your heartbeat resonates with the rhythms of life all around you. And yet we cling to the illusion of separation because it feels safe. It gives us a sense of control, a sense of being someone in particular. But this illusion also creates fear. If I am separate from the world, then I must protect myself from it. If I am separate from others, then I must compete with them. And if I am separate from life, then death becomes the ultimate threat, a final severing of all connection. Now, imagine stepping away from this illusion. Imagine solitude as a chance to dissolve those lines of separation. When you are alone, not surrounded by people, not distracted by conversation, the boundaries of self begin to blur. In the stillness, you might notice something extraordinary. The world doesn't feel so distant anymore. The wind isn't just blowing around you, it moves through you. The quiet isn't just outside, it echoes within. This is the power of solitude. It strips away the noise and allows us to experience life as it truly is, interconnected, whole and infinite. You begin to see that the same force that moves the stars also moves you. The same intelligence that blooms a flower resides in your breath. The separation you once believed in was never real. It was only a story your mind told you, a story that solitude invites you to rewrite. When you let go of the illusion of separation, something profound happens. The fear begins to fade. The anxiety of having to prove yourself disappears because there is no self to prove, no other to impress. What remains is a sense of belonging not to a group, a place, or a role, but to life itself. You realize that you are not in the universe, you are the universe, experiencing itself in this unique form. So why is being alone so powerful? Because it confronts you with this truth. In solitude, you don't escape the world, you merge with it. You remember that just as the wave is never apart from the ocean, you are never apart from the vast, boundless reality of life. And in that remembrance you find peace not in being something, but in simply being. We often think of silence as an absence of noise, of conversation, of activity. To many it feels like a void, something to be filled or avoided. But true silence is not empty, it is brimming with potential. It is not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness, a portal to deeper understanding and connection. Think for a moment about the spaces between words when you speak. Without the pauses, language would be incomprehensible, a chaotic blur of sounds. It is the silence between the notes that makes music resonate. In the same way, silence in life is not a lack, it is the canvas upon which everything meaningful is created. Yet we live in a world that fears silence. We are constantly surrounded by noise, voices, alerts, music, traffic. Even when the external noise fades, our minds fill the gap with internal chatter, to-do lists, worries, judgments, fantasies. It's as if we're afraid of what might surface if we allowed the quiet to take hold. But this is precisely where silence becomes powerful. When we stop running from it and instead step into it, silence transforms from a void into a portal. It opens the door to truths that cannot be spoken, to insights that cannot be forced, and to a kind of peace that exists beyond understanding. In silence, you begin to hear the whispers of your own soul. The constant stream of thoughts, which often dominates your awareness, starts to settle like muddy water left undisturbed. As the mental noise fades, clarity emerges. You may realize that many of the fears and desires driving you are not truly yours. They are echoes of societal expectations, past experiences, or imagined futures. Silence reveals what is real and what is not. Silence also connects you to the present moment in a profound way. Without the distractions of noise, you become aware of the subtleties of life, the sound of your breath, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the rhythm of your heartbeat. These are not distractions, they are life itself, unfolding in real time. In silence, you don't just observe life, you experience it directly. Moreover, silence has a way of dissolving boundaries. In the stillness, the separation between you and the world softens. You begin to feel the interconnectedness of all things not as a concept, but as a lived reality. Silence becomes a space where you remember that you are not just a part of life, you are life, expressing itself in this moment. It's important to understand that silence can be uncomfortable at first. The mind, unaccustomed to stillness, may rebel, filling the quiet with restless thoughts or feelings of unease. This is natural. But if you can sit with that discomfort, something extraordinary happens. The resistance begins to fade, and silence reveals itself not as emptiness, but as fullness, a fullness, a fullness that holds infinite potential. Silence is where creativity is born. The greatest ideas, the most profound works of art, often arise not in the midst of chaos, but in the stillness of solitude. When you are silent, you create space for inspiration to flow, untainted by the noise of others' opinions or the clutter of your own doubts. Silence is also healing. In its embrace, you can release the weight of words unsaid or wounds unacknowledged. Without judgment or distraction, silence allows you to feel, to grieve, to grow. It holds a mirror to your inner world, showing you not only your pain, but also your strength. Ultimately, silence is a portal because it takes you beyond the surface of life and into its depths. It shows you that the answers you seek are not out there, but within you, waiting in the quiet. It reminds you that beneath the noise of the world and the chatter of your mind lies a still, steady presence that has always been there, unchanging, unshaken, and infinite. So do not fear silence. Embrace it. Enter it not as an escape, but as a return to yourself, to the truth of who you are, and to the boundless mystery of life itself. In silence, you will not lose yourself, you will find yourself. And in that discovery, you will find the whole world waiting for you. For many, solitude feels like a void, a vacuum where companionship, activity, and purpose vanish. It feels unsettling, even terrifying, as if the absence of others leaves us face to face with something we'd rather avoid ourselves. This fear of solitude is deeply ingrained. From an early age, we're conditioned to equate connection with validation, company with happiness, and being surrounded by others with being whole. Society glorifies togetherness, relationships, communities and networks are held up as the markers of a fulfilling life. To be alone is often viewed as a failure, a sign that something is missing or wrong. But what lies beneath this fear of solitude? What are we really running from when we avoid being alone? At its core, the fear of solitude is the fear of encountering ourselves without distractions. When we're alone, the noise of the world fades, leaving only our own thoughts, feelings, and insecurities. We are forced to confront the parts of ourselves we may have ignored or suppressed, the doubts, the fears, the wounds that lurk in the shadows of our minds. Solitude is like a mirror that reflects our true selves, and that reflection isn't always comfortable. It reveals our vulnerabilities, the ways we've fallen short, the dreams we've neglected. In solitude, there's no one to reassure us, no external validation to prop us up. And this can feel overwhelming because we've been taught to measure our worth by how others perceive us. Yet, paradoxically, this fear of solitude is also what makes it so powerful. The discomfort we feel in solitude is not a sign of something being wrong. It's a sign of something being wrong. It's a sign of something being uncovered. It is in this space, free from the noise of others' opinions and the distractions of daily life, that we can begin to truly know ourselves. But first, we must face the discomfort head-on. The initial moments of solitude can feel like standing in a storm. Your mind races with thoughts, what am I doing here? Shouldn't I be with someone? What if I'm missing out? This is the voice of fear, born from the illusion that you are incomplete without others. But if you stay with the storm, it eventually passes, and something remarkable happens. In the stillness that follows, you begin to hear a different voice, the quiet, steady voice of your inner self. This voice doesn't shout or demand, it simply is. And as you listen, you realize that the fears that once seemed so loud were nothing more than echoes of past conditioning. The fear of solitude is also tied to the fear of emptiness. When we are alone, we are stripped of our roles: parent, partner, friend, colleague. Without these labels, who are we? This question can be unsettling because we often mistake our roles for our identity. Solitude challenges this illusion, forcing us to confront the possibility that we are more than what we do or how others see us. But here's the truth: solitude is not empty. It is full of life, full of presence, full of potential. When we embrace it, we discover that the emptiness we feared was actually space, a spaciousness in which we can breathe, reflect, and simply be. Another layer of the fear of solitude comes from the stories we tell ourselves about it. We equate solitude with loneliness, imagining a life of isolation and longing. But loneliness and solitude are not the same. Loneliness is the feeling of being disconnected, even in a crowd. Solitude, on the other hand, is a choice to connect with yourself and, through that, to the world in a deeper way. The fear of solitude is ultimately the fear of transformation. When you are alone, without the distractions of the outside world, you begin to shed the masks you've worn. This can feel like losing something, but in truth, you are gaining something far greater: authenticity. In solitude, you are free from the expectations of others. You can explore your thoughts without judgment, feel your emotions without suppression, and discover your desires without interference. It is in this space that you can reconnect with your essence, the part of you that is unchanging and infinite. So why do we fear solitude? Because it challenges us to let go of the familiar and step into the unknown. It forces us to confront ourselves, to face the truths we've avoided, and to embrace the fullness of who we are. And yet it is precisely this confrontation that makes solitude so transformative. When you move through the fear of solitude, you find that being alone is not a punishment, but a gift. It is a chance to come home to yourself, to remember that you are not incomplete or lacking. You are whole, and in your aloneness you are profoundly connected to the entirety of life. Embracing solitude is not about rejecting others or retreating from the world. It is about discovering that you are enough as you are. And when you realize this, solitude is no longer something to fear. It becomes a space of freedom, a portal to peace, and a powerful reminder that within you lies everything you need. At first glance, aloneness and loneliness may seem like two sides of the same coin. Both are states of being without others, yet their essence and impact are profoundly different. To understand them is to grasp a vital distinction about our relationship with ourselves and the world. Loneliness is a longing, a yearning for connection that feels out of reach. It is the sense of being cut off, not just from others, but often from ourselves. In loneliness, there is an ache, a feeling of incompleteness, as though something vital is missing. It stems from a perception of lack of companionship, understanding, or belonging. Even in a crowded room, one can feel lonely, because loneliness is not about physical isolation, but emotional disconnection. Aloneness, on the other hand, is a state of being that is whole and complete. It is the recognition that you are enough as you are without needing external validation or company. Aloneness is not a condition to be fixed, but a natural aspect of existence. It is a space where you can simply be, unencumbered by the demands or expectations of others. The difference lies in how we approach these states. Loneliness often arises when we resist being alone, when we see solitude as a void that must be filled. It comes from the belief that our worth or happiness depends on the presence of others. This belief creates a dependence, a sense that we are incomplete without external connection. Loneliness is rooted in fear, the fear of being forgotten, of being insignificant, of not being enough. Aloneness, however, is not about what is missing, but about what is present. It is a state of self-reliance, where your sense of identity and fulfillment is not tied to others. In aloneness, you are free to explore your thoughts, emotions, and desires without interference. It is a space where you can reconnect with yourself and rediscover the richness of your inner world. Loneliness often feels like a weight, a burden that pulls you down. It comes with a sense of lack, of emptiness that seems impossible to fill. It creates a tension, a restlessness that drives people to seek distractions, relationships, activities, or endless scrolling through social media. But these are often temporary fixes, providing only fleeting relief from the deeper ache. Aloneness, by contrast, is light and expansive. It is not something imposed upon you, but a choice, a practice of being fully present with yourself. In aloneness, there is no need to fill the space, because the space itself is enough. It is not about isolation, but intimacy, the intimacy of knowing yourself, of hearing your own thoughts, of feeling your own presence. Loneliness often carries a sense of comparison, a narrative of why am I alone when others are not. It is colored by judgment, a feeling of inadequacy, as though solitude is a failure or punishment. This perspective fuels the cycle of avoidance, making solitude seem threatening. Aloneness, on the other hand, is free from comparison. It does not measure itself against the lives of others, because it is rooted in acceptance. Aloneness is not a condition to be endured, but an opportunity to engage with life on your own terms. It is not about turning away from the world, but about finding your center within it. Loneliness can feel hollow, a gnawing absence that echoes through the heart and mind. It carries with it a sense of abandonment, as though one has been left behind or left out. It can create a sense of alienation, a belief that you are separate from the world and those around you. Aloneness, by contrast, feels full, even abundant. It is not an absence, but a presence, the presence of your own being. In aloneness, you are not separate, but deeply connected, not through others, but through your own existence. It is a state of authenticity, where you can let go of the masks you wear and simply be as you are. Where loneliness feels like a longing, aloneness feels like a return. It is a coming home to yourself, a space where you can explore the depths of your thoughts, emotions, and creativity. It allows you to see yourself clearly, without the distortions of external expectations or distractions. Solitude has long been recognized as a fertile ground for creativity. When you are alone, the noise of the outside world fades and the endless demands for attention and response subside. In that stillness, the mind has space to wander, explore, and connect ideas in ways that are often inaccessible amid the chaos of everyday life. Solitude does not merely provide an absence of distraction, it creates an environment where the seeds of imagination can take root and flourish. And creativity thrives in solitude because it allows for introspection, a turning inward where you can listen to your thoughts without interference. In the company of others, our minds are often preoccupied with social dynamics, what to say, how to respond, how we are being perceived. But in solitude, those external pressures dissipate, and we are free to explore our inner landscapes. This is where inspiration resides, not in the noise, but in the quiet spaces we rarely allow ourselves to enter. The creative process is deeply personal and solitude honors that individuality. It removes the need for performance, for tailoring ideas to suit an audience or conforming to external expectations. In solitude, there is no one to judge or critique, only the freedom to experiment and let ideas unfold naturally. It is in this unguarded space that creativity can flow unfiltered, raw, and authentic. Moreover, solitude encourages a state of deep focus. Without the constant pull of notifications, conversations, and obligations, the mind can dive fully into the act of creation. Whether it's writing, painting, problem-solving, or innovating, solitude provides the continuity of thought that is often disrupted in a world filled with distractions. It is in these moments of undivided attention that breakthroughs occur, as the mind is free to follow threads of curiosity to their fullest extent. Solitude also fosters a unique kind of dialogue, one with yourself. This inner conversation allows you to question assumptions, challenge conventional thinking, and explore possibilities that might feel too vulnerable or unconventional to share with others. In solitude, there is no fear of rejection or misunderstanding, only the opportunity to engage deeply with your own ideas. Many of history's greatest creators and thinkers have sought solitude as a means of unlocking their potential. They understood that solitude is not isolation, but a space where the mind and spirit can breathe, free from the constraints of societal roles and expectations. In this space, creativity is not forced but discovered, emerging naturally from the depths of the self. Solitude also allows for reflection, a critical component of the creative process. In the stillness, you can revisit ideas, refine them, and see them from new angles. This reflective space is where insights are born, where seemingly unrelated thoughts coalesce into something entirely new. It is where you can connect the dots that were invisible in the busyness of daily life. Furthermore, solitude nurtures imagination. Without the immediate input of others, the mind is free to dream, to envision possibilities unshaped by external influence. It is in this dreaming state that new worlds are created, whether in art, literature, science, or innovation. The absence of external voices allows your inner voice to emerge, guiding you toward ideas that are uniquely your own. Solitude also challenges you to confront the discomfort of a blank page, a silent room, or